ever get home from work, realize that you just like inhaled an entire bag of chips and you're thinking, how did that happen again?
Every day.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
But what if I told you there's this like hidden force at play here, the secret code that our brains are following that dictates way more of our lives than we even realize?
Oh, yeah. It's totally true. Like, we go around thinking we're in control, making choices all day. But the reality is that our brains, they crave those shortcuts. And you know what those shortcuts are.
What are they?
Habits. Our habits.
Habits. So today we're diving deep into the science behind these subconscious autopilot programs with Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit.
Love this book.
It's so good.
Yeah.
We're going to uncover why we do what we do and, like, more importantly, how to actually change those behaviors that we always thought were just set in stone. Buckle up. This is going to be fascinating.
Yeah. And Duhigg, he kicks it off with a real attention grabber. He says over 40% of our daily actions, they're driven by habit, not by deliberate choices.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's kind of unsettling.
It's a little scary.
But it also explains a lot.
It does. A lot.
So how does this even work? Is there like a habit center in our brains that we don't know about?
Okay, so there's not a flashing neon sign habit zone in there.
Okay.
But there is this part of your brain that's responsible for those automatic actions, things you do without even thinking.
Like, I don't consciously think about how to, like, open a door every single time. Thank goodness.
Exactly. And that's your brain being efficient, right? It's freeing up mental energy to focus on other things. And, the really wild part is that these habits, they're encoded so deeply, even more so than memories.
Right, oh, yeah.
Duhigg talks about this guy, HM, who, after he had brain surgery, he couldn't form new memories.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't remember, like, what he did 5 minutes ago.
Exactly. He would just completely forget. But here's the kicker. Even though he couldn't form those new memories, he could still learn new habits.
What?
Researchers, they were baffled by this because it really drove home that habits are like these superhighways in your brain.
Wow.
Totally separate from your conscious memory.
Okay, that's cool, but it's also a little terrifying. So
Yeah.
even if I break a bad habit, it's still lurking somewhere in my brain's circuitry.
You could say that, yeah. But, knowledge is power, right?
Right.
So once you understand this, you can actually start to rewire those pathways instead of just feeling powerless against them.
Okay, I like the sound of that a lot more. So if habits are these like ingrained patterns, what is driving them? There's got to be something that's fueling that loop, right?
Yeah, Duhigg calls it craving. And it's basically the engine that keeps that habit loop spinning.
Craving. Okay, I think I get that. Like when I walk past a certain bakery and suddenly I need a cinnamon roll.
Exactly. And it's often not even a conscious craving. Like your brain, it starts to associate certain cues with a reward, and then it just automatically seeks those out. Remember those like strategically placed Cinnabon stores we've talked about?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The aroma of sugar and cinnamon just like wafting.
The whole mall. The entire mall, yeah. Genius, but also kind of sneaky.
It is. It's like they're tapping into that subconscious desire, the craving for that reward, which in that case is just a delicious, gooey cinnamon roll.
So my brain has basically learned that walking through a certain part of the mall equals a potential sugar rush.
Exactly.
That's kind of wild.
It really highlights how our environment is influencing our behaviors without us even realizing it.
It really is. Okay, so we've got these habits running on autopilot, right?
Right.
Fueled by cravings.
Yep.
But how do we actually hack this system? Like, if our brains are so good at forming these loops, can we actually change them once they're in place?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is.
And luckily for us, Duhigg, he's got some answers. He introduces us to this advertising legend, Claude Hopkins, who basically wrote the playbook on habit formation. Yeah, Hopkins, he was like the Don Draper of his time,
Okay.
Except instead of cigarettes, he was selling toothpaste.
Toothpaste. Okay, that doesn't exactly sound like super exciting. What's the habit-forming secret behind toothpaste?
So back then, people, they didn't really brush their teeth regularly. Like it wasn't the daily ritual that it is now.
Right.
Hopkins, he saw an opportunity there. He realized, he was like, okay, I need to create a craving, a need that people don't even realize they have yet.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do you make people crave toothpaste?
Well, he stumbled upon this thing called like tooth film, that kind of gritty feeling you get when you haven't brushed for a while.
Yeah.
That became his cue.
So he made something that was kind of gross, a reminder to go brush your teeth. That's clever.
Exactly. He plastered ads everywhere saying like, feel that film on your teeth. That's what's making them all dull and dingy.
Oh, wow.
And then he introduced the reward, Pepsodent toothpaste, promising that it would give you this dazzling, like, movie star smile.
So it wasn't even that the toothpaste itself was so special.
Yeah.
It was the promise of this reward.
The reward. He created this link in people's minds.
Yeah.
Tooth film equals bad. Pepsodent equals beautiful teeth. And what happened?
Yet.
Sales through the roof.
Wow.
And just like that, toothbrushing, it was a national habit.
That's incredible. So his formula, it was basically find a cue, create a craving for a reward, and boom, new habit formed.
That's it.
But this is bigger than toothpaste.
Oh, absolutely. This formula, it can be applied to like almost any habit you want to form. Like Duhigg, he gives this example of wanting to exercise more.
Yeah.
Your cue, it could be something as simple as like coming home from work.
Right.
The reward, that guilt-free beer in the fridge that you only let yourself have after a good workout.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm linking that like end-of-day routine with a reward that I actually want, and then I'm more likely to stick with it.
Exactly. It's about understanding the cravings that are driving your behavior and then, finding those healthy, sustainable ways to actually satisfy them.
This is making me rethink all those times I've tried to like rely on willpower alone to change a habit. This is way more interesting.
It is.
Okay, I need more examples.
Okay.
Did this formula work for anything else besides like toothpaste and, hypothetical workouts?
Oh, for sure. Duhigg, he talks about Febreze. And it's actually a really interesting example of how, like, even a product that seems like it would be a surefire hit can totally flop if it doesn't tap into the right habit loop.
Wait, so Febreze failed at first. I use that stuff all the time. How could it not sell?
I know, right? It's kind of counterintuitive.
It is.
They marketed it as an odor eliminator.
Yeah.
Like, thinking people are going to be psyched to banish bad smells.
Right.
But there was a problem.
What was the problem? It makes my house smell amazing.
Okay, but the problem was that there wasn't a pre-existing habit loop for using Febreze. People, they didn't have that specific cue that made them think, oh, I need to eliminate this odor, like, right now.
So they were trying to create, like, a whole new habit from scratch. That's tough. I mean, most of us, we can barely brush our teeth regularly, let alone add, like, a whole new step
to our routine.
It's really hard.
Right.
And without that, like, consistent cue, people just weren't reaching for the Febreze.
Okay, so how did they turn things around?
Well, they went back to the drawing board, right? They started thinking about, like, existing habits and when do people usually notice a clean scent?
After they've cleaned, right. I mean, that's like the best part.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that fresh smell.
So instead of fighting against existing habits, they're like, you know what, let's just lean in. They reposition Febreze as the reward at the end of a cleaning routine. Like that final spritz, that signals a job well done.
So they turned a product designed to get rid of bad smells into, like, a sensory reward
Yes.
for an existing habit. That's brilliant. Yeah.
So clever.
It is.
And it totally worked.
Wow. And speaking of, like, powerful change, Duhigg, he also explores how these habit loops, they play out in larger contexts, like breaking, like, really deeply ingrained behaviors like addiction.
Yeah.
Oh, right. He talks about Alcoholics Anonymous, right?
Yeah.
And how their approach really aligns with this whole habit loop idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The 12 steps, they really emphasize identifying those cues that trigger cravings,
Okay.
finding new routines to replace those old, destructive ones. But I think maybe the most crucial part is fostering that belief that change is possible.
Yeah, that belief part is huge, right? It's not just about willpower at that point.
Yeah.
It's about, like, shifting your entire mindset
Yeah, your mindset.
to believe you can actually break free
You can.
from those old patterns.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what's interesting? At first, even some researchers, they were kind of skeptical
Really?
about the impact of belief. But, like, they couldn't deny the data.
Right.
The people who believed they could change, they were way more likely to succeed. And it wasn't tied to any specific religion or anything like that. It was just that fundamental belief in a brighter future
Yeah.
and the confidence to actually go after it.
That makes sense because it's like, if you don't even believe that change is possible, why even try?
Exactly.
It's like those growth mindset studies, right?
Yes.
Believing that you can improve makes you that much more likely to actually do it.
Totally.
But this goes beyond just individual change, right?
Oh, yeah.
Duhigg, he also talks about how these habit principles can transform entire organizations.
Oh, absolutely. He's got this great story about Tony Dungy,
Okay.
the NFL coach.
Yeah.
He used habit formation to, like, totally turn around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Really?
Yeah. Instead of just, like, overwhelming his players with tons of instructions, he focused on, like, really specific habits.
Okay.
So it's like automatic responses to game time cues.
So by ingraining those habits, the players could just like react instinctively on the field
Yes.
without having to like second guess themselves or anything. Did it work?
It totally worked.
What?
Their performance went through the roof.
Wow.
They became one of the top teams.
That's amazing. It's like they say, like practice makes permanent.
Right.
But it's not just about repetition. It's about like consciously creating those neural pathways
Yes, it's
for success.
I love that.
That's so cool. And this idea of like habit-driven change, it goes beyond sports too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because Duhigg also talks about Paul O'Neill,
Yes.
the former CEO of Alcoa,
Alcoa.
and how he completely transformed the company's safety record
Amazing story.
by focusing on, you guessed,
Habits.
habits.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but safety's not usually the first thing that comes to mind when I think, like, exciting organizational change.
Right.
So how did he do it?
He made it his top priority, like above profits even,
Wow.
which people thought he was crazy
Yeah.
at first, but he was relentless. Like, he focused on creating these new safety habits and building this whole culture of accountability. And he totally changed Alcoa's trajectory.
So by changing the company's habits, he changed its entire culture. And it's bottom line, this has been like eye-opening,
Right.
this whole deep dive. It makes you realize how much potential we all have
There we go.
to make positive changes, not just in our own lives, but like the world around us.
The world. I love that.
It's amazing.
It is.
So for everybody listening, here's your call to action. Think about a habit you'd like to change.
Yes.
What's the cue? What's the routine? What's the reward?
Ask yourself.
And once you understand those elements, you can start to experiment with changing them.
You got this.
Right. Remember, even small changes, they can lead to really big results over time.
They do. They really do. And, don't be afraid to, like, phone a friend, too.
Yes.
Having that support system, somebody to cheer you on or just hold you accountable, it makes all the difference.
It really does. This has been an amazing deep dive.
So good.
We went from like brushing our teeth to transforming corporate culture.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to the power of habits.
It does.
I'm feeling very inspired, and I hope you are too. If this sparked your curiosity, definitely check out The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And join us next time as we take another deep dive into a new topic and uncover even more fascinating insights that can help us navigate this crazy, beautiful thing called life.